So good morning again, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's 10:33, so with respect to everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started and just keep admitting people as they come in. My name is Wendy Pearson. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Manager at the Kansas City Public Library. This is my first time facilitating a meeting, and I'm going to set aside the fact that it is April Fool's Day and hope for flawless everything, no technology snafus. So we'll go ahead and get started. Our mission and vision at the Kansas City Coalition for Digital Inclusion, just sharing that here for you. It's also on our website. And our steering council, Carrie Coogan with the Kansas City Public Library. I don't know that Aaron Deacon is here today from KC Digital Drive. I've seen Tom Esselman from PCs for People. And I haven't seen Ina Montgomery yet from Urban Tech. So thank you to our steering council. And we'd like to invite you to become a member. It's free, and that can be easily done from our website. There's an online form, and just fill that out, and it tells us a little bit about you and your organization. And then you can participate in all of the benefits of being a member. And of course, there are tons of ways to connect with the coalition and all of its members. We have several social media accounts and a direct email account, digitalinclusion@kclibrary.org. And of course, check out our website. We've kind of redone that, freshened it up a little bit. So check that out when you have a chance. And we have our agenda for the day, and you'll notice that we've switched things around a little bit to accommodate some folks' schedules. But before we jump in, I wanted to check and see if we have any new attendees. If this is your first time joining us at the coalition meeting, we'd like to hear from you. Just your name, your organization, a little bit about your organization and what you do and why digital inclusion is important to you. Do we have any new people today? Okay. So I don't see any virtual or physical hands raised, so I guess we can just move on. Oops. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen now. We'll pop the agenda right back up as soon as we hear from our member update. A little something that we're trying out. It's our second time now. We are inviting you as coalition members to present a little bit about your organization so we can get to know each other better. And I'm looking at the agenda, and I promise that me facilitating this didn't mean that I was monopolizing things, because there's a few of my team members on the agenda today. And we're actually going to start with Din. She's our newest member at the Kansas City Public Library's Tech Access team. And she is going to tell us a little bit about Tech Access and how we provide digital literacy services to the patrons in the library service area. So welcome, Din. Thank you so much for joining us.
There we go. I was stuck in mute for a moment. Thank you, Wendy. Let me go ahead and just try to share my screen here. And I have a little slideshow just to go over our services at the library. All right, so I hope everyone can see this. So today I'm just going to be presenting about Tech Access at the Kansas City Public Library. And my name is Dinh Nguyen, and I'm the Tech Access Programming Coordinator. My responsibilities include digital inclusion programs within the library spaces and our Tech Coach volunteer program. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Kansas City Public Library and who we serve, the Tech Access Program, and our services, our volunteers, and just share some resources for you all. So the Kansas City Public Library's mission is to be a doorway to knowledge for all people in our community. We consist of a central library location downtown and 9 other branch locations across the KC Metro. We currently serve over 1.7 million residents, and Tech Access is available to all of those residents. And Tech Access actually started as a grant-funded project in 2016 by our very own Wendy Pearson. And it was an initiative to enhance the library's digital inclusion services for our community. We are now a permanent subdivision of the Kansas City Public Library Strategic Initiatives Department, which is now led by Wendy. And our mission is to connect the Kansas City Public Library's communities to promote digital inclusion, tech proficiency, and life learning among adults. Our services include Tech Coach volunteers, which provide direct service to our patrons at all of our library locations. Learning Pathways, which is curated or customized content to help develop different learners at whatever skill level they're at. We also offer a mobile computer lab so we can bring computers or laptops to partner sites or anywhere that learners need us. And we also have community partnerships, which is led by McNaughton, who I believe is in this call. I wanted to take a moment to talk about our volunteers. They are a huge component of the Tech Access program at the Kansas City Library. These Tech Coach volunteers have diverse backgrounds and skill sets, which allow us to give direct service to our community members, regardless of their digital skill level. Their services include one-on-one appointments, which is available at all 10 library locations. They also host our drop-in sessions currently at 5 library locations and hopefully eventually all 10. And we plan on having classes and workshops beginning in fall, just depending on the availability of our Tech Coach volunteers. And it's a great experience to work with our volunteers, and we wouldn't be able to have our services without them. If you happen to know anyone, or if you want to know more about what it's like to volunteer with Tech Access, feel free to share this, and you can learn more at kclibrary.org/volunteer. And I'm going to talk just a second about our impact so far. As of January of this year, our volunteers and staff members have provided over 1,900 hours of service and have also provided 2,100 digital literacy interactions over the course of the 6 years, I think. And so if you are looking for more resources, you can learn more about Tech Access through kclibrary.org/Tech Access. We have an updated website with new content and ways to get in contact with us. We also have this contact information here, which I'd be happy to share in a moment, either through email or through the chat. But you can always contact me. I'm the Tech Access Programming Coordinator. If you have any questions about Tech Access within our libraries, Megan McNaughton is our Tech Access Partnerships Coordinator. So if you or your organization wants to work with Tech Access on digital inclusion services, Megan McNaughton would be the one to contact. And Wendy Pearson is our Strategic Initiatives Manager and the facilitator today. And she is an excellent resource if you have any questions about digital inclusion, partnerships, and strategies. And I think that is about it. I don't know if I flew through that. Let me stop sharing my screen here. And I will hand it back to Wendy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions about Tech Access and what we do, or even the library? Any questions for Din or Megan or me?
Hi, Wendy, it's Tom. I just wanted to reach out to Ike Graham at Vineyard Neighborhood Association. I know they've done quite a bit of work with Tech Access program. And Ike, hello. I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. I didn't know if you might be willing, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm doing it, just to share some of the experience that I know that some of the residents at Vineyard have had, and to give some examples of how Tech Access really does do amazing outreach in the community. And I think even more importantly, because I think we're going to be hearing from BJ here in a little bit, and so many of the new funding programs and support that's starting to rise up around the country are going to be focused more and more, not just on the technology, but on the training side. And I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons we wanted to put a spotlight on it. And there's nothing like hearing some testimonials from a group that's really worked with them. And so if you'd be willing to share a little bit of the experience you guys have had at Vineyard, that would be that would be helpful. I think you're muted, Ike. Let me.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep.
All right. Yeah, you did put me on the spot. You know, last month I had to do a presentation.
I know. I just figured to just keep the momentum. Just keep the momentum. You're a star now.
Yeah.
Presenting.
Yeah, you're piling it on pretty heavy today. But yeah, since I joined digital inclusion, you and the staff, Wendy, Megan, when you start naming people, but all of the staff have really been great in helping us at Vineyard, because we got a grant through the program to help improve our lab to finish it off. We got our computers upgraded again from when you came out the first time to do it. And the whole project was to, when the kids get out of school and they needed somewhere to go and do homework and stuff for the ones that didn't have computers at home, we was making it available here at the neighborhood center. So thanks to you and Chris and all the people that came out and fixed it up for us, gave us computers, came back and upgraded the computers. And we are now hosting classes. Well, we were doing it every Thursday up until the winter. They haven't really got it started back yet. But Megan came out, did some classes, and she trained the trainers. So we got people that's sitting back just waiting, you know, for to help out when people come in to use them for job search or taxes or anything that they need.
That's great. Well, and I appreciate you sharing that, Ike. One of the things that a number of us are working on for the kind of some future developments in the Kansas City area is based on something you just said, kind of the power of a train the trainer model. You know, digital training and computer skills, you know, that's very labor intensive. You know, it's the one-on-one mentoring. It's helping people with an array of challenges. And we know from having attended the National Digital Inclusion Alliance conference last month in Portland, that there are a lot of efforts that are moving forward to say, you know, how can we better model the way that we can provide that the kind of the capacity we need to offer more of that individualized mentoring and training, like what you guys have experienced at Vineyard. And you mentioned school kids, but there's also a lot of older adults who, you know, they need some time to really work through and get comfortable. I know we see it at our LAMP classroom all the time. But I think what's brewing is the idea of looking at some other models around the country that can expand our ability to do what Tech Access is doing, through kind of a train the trainer model. And I just wanted to make sure that this discussion starts to set the table for what looks like it's going to start developing more and more among coalitions around the country, where the need for this kind of digital skills training is, it's so intense, and it really requires a lot of people working together. So Dan, I'm thrilled that you're part of the Tech Access team. And I think what Wendy started a few years ago and what Ike was just able to reflect on is really just kind of a foundational point for what looks like is going to start expanding more and more in the future. So I really appreciate what you guys do and that you were willing to share that with us.
Well, thank you. And the Thursday class was really seamless.
Yeah, I know Jewish Family Services, JFS, they have always had a big focus on teaching computer skills for older adults as well. And there are numerous partners who see and recognize how important that is, and how much work we still have to do to expand our ability to provide those services. So I'm glad to hear you guys are getting it done. Ike, you've been doing it for years, and it just sounds like we keep getting better and better, and more programs and more resources are starting to finally, develop that are going to make it easier and easier going forward. So thanks again for your willingness to share.
All right.
And thank you, Tom, for your words. It makes me so proud and happy that our team at the library is growing, and we have, growing capacity to provide these kinds of service. For example, Din and Megan are full-time permanent employees that the library has designated to the team. And that allows us to, strengthen our impact within the library locations. But then in, for example, Megan's case, she is completely devoted to going beyond the library's walls and working with partners like, Ike and other agencies out there. And of course, wherever possible, we definitely prioritize that train the trainer model, because it's more sustainable, empowering these organizations to, work with their own resources and provide these services themselves. So thank you, everyone, for your kind words and encouragement. Let me pull back up our agenda. So let's see. Next on our agenda today, not to put you on the spot, Megan, I didn't realize you were going to be here. I thought you were going to be out, but I wanted to see if you could provide a super brief update and see if you've had any response with the Digital Literacy Resource Committee, and then maybe we can invite people to join us if they haven't yet. Let's see. I am dropping in the link. Okay, is Megan still here? Maybe not. All right, I'll go ahead and fill in. So we last meeting announced our intentions to start up a working group within the coalition. And we are inviting any organizations or agencies out there in the Kansas City region who are providing digital literacy services, whether you are using resources like North Star or digitallearn.org, or you're making your own content, creating original PowerPoints, handouts, and things to help learners build up their digital literacy skills. And we're asking for a little bit of your time, I think an hour each month. Megan already has the first meeting set. And we just want to meet and get together, share these resources, and learn from each other so that we can really strengthen what we have to offer collectively across our region. So if you're interested in joining the conversation, just Oh, there she is. In the chat. Megan has dropped her email in there, and then I dropped the link in case you're interested in learning more at least, or joining the conversation and being a part of that work. Next, I know, Rick, did you want to talk a little bit about the Brunch and Broadband? I know in the chat earlier, I saw that you dropped some information in there. This is our community announcement section. So if anyone has anything they want to share, events that you know about, or updates you want to provide, please just raise your hand or speak up. Oh, why is it? Apparently people are unable to unmute themselves. I see. I'm looking for you, Rick, here.
All right, there we go. Thanks. Thanks. Just a short update, got some numbers from William Crumpler. He's been doing a great job of monitoring these numbers out of the FCC program. Regionally, we're tracking zip codes across the Kansas City region, Kansas and Missouri. And we're really only up 3.5% from the last reporting. So that's 47,819 total subscriptions. No, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong number there. 49,480. That's as of March 1. And I guess we'll be getting more ACP data here shortly. This is a little disappointing because they had been providing that weekly or every other week for a while. And it's the only way we really can see where our efforts are, bumping the numbers up. But still, pretty disappointing to see that's only 3.5%. We do need a stronger outreach initiative, as we've been, discussing here for some time. I'm sorry, that was the ACP. You asked me about Brunch and Broadband.
Hey, I was going to ask you about ACP too, so great.
Okay, yeah, I was ready for that one. Brunch and Broadband, I was hoping Ina might be here or William Wells might be here to discuss that project. I don't know a lot about it. I know that it's happening tomorrow, and there's a link that we might provide to everyone.
Yeah, I'll share that in the chat.
Drop that. All I've really seen is an announcement on Twitter that gives you a phone number and email address at Councilwoman Robinson's office to show that you're interested. It's going to include Congressman Cleaver and State Representative Michael Johnson, and it sounds like a great lineup there. I don't see any virtual way to join that, or whether I haven't seen any more on the agenda.
Well, thank you so much. And Leslie, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, good. See your hand raised. Oh, it says you're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
Okay, how about now?
Good.
Okay. I just wanted to tag on to what Rick said. I know that Wendy, you and I will be at Brunch and Broadband tomorrow. I know it's really short notice, but we should have plenty of room on our table, at least for KC Digital Drive. The library is fortunate enough to have quite a little bit of swag, and so I know you'll fill yours up, but I just invite anyone who might have something, whether that's class schedules or other kinds of flyers. If they want to connect with me, we can try and figure out how to grab those, or more than happy to put them on our table. And then as far as AACP Outreach goes, William Crumpler and I have gone a few times to the Full Employment Council. We went to Donnelly College a couple of times, and are continuing to look for spaces where there's foot traffic, maybe people coming in to apply for other programs or receive other kinds of services. So if anyone's interested in hosting us for one of those enrollment dates, let me know. And I'm currently working on an ACP manual, which finally got the attention of NDIA, and we were supposed to meet yesterday, but got crossed up with time zones. So my 2:30 that I said I was free was their 1:30, and so we're going to try again. But I would just say if anyone has any thoughts around the ACP enrollment based on their own experience, I know Rick, you've had some, or Tom, you've had some experiences that could be helpful. So, if you want to pass those on, those little nuances are going to be helpful to our community-based organizations that don't really live and breathe this space. So we can talk offline about those, or as they, as they rear their ugly heads, feel free to pass those pain points on so that we can include those. And I think that's all I have. I'll go ahead and drop my email in the chat, and then we can connect offline for tomorrow's event or ACP enrollment.
Yes, I look forward to spending tomorrow morning with you at the Mohart Center and finding out more about this event as we are just there.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
Wendy, question came up in the chat about Jeremy Pegley asked about the geography, and William has shared some links there. There's I think the maps haven't changed much since we looked at them last time, but the trend we were seeing was positive, that the program is being used more heavily in the zip codes that we're hoping it would be, where we know the digital divide is deepest. But it's still, it may be only at 40 or 50% of eligible households in those zip codes are utilizing it. And, there's much more need for outreach as Leslie has gone over it. And Leslie, has been out there, and as has William. So still work to do.
Right. Anybody else have any updates or questions or information to share?
Wendy, I was wondering if you could do another call for new people. We may have some
Joined us since we started, you bet. So is this the first time you're attending the coalition meeting for anyone today? Do we have any new people?
Hi.
Nicole, hi there. So if you're new and just joining us today, just tell us your name, your organization you're affiliated with, and why you think digital inclusion is important.
So my name is Nicole Freeman, and I'm an intern with Phoenix Family. So one of the requirements for our learning contract is to join a community outreach opportunity. So this was one that came up, and then I guess just being able to give everybody access to connectivity, I think is important, especially for the population that we serve and the kids going to school, are being able to access more things on school so that they're not falling behind.
Thank you so much for joining us. Phoenix Family is a longtime partner of Tech Access at the library. You're one of our first partners. Worked at all the sites there on Armour and over at Curls Manor and a few more. It's a fantastic.
Cool.
Anybody else joining us for the first time today? Got. All right. Let's see where we are at on our agenda. I think if nobody else has any announcements or updates to share, we are ready for our feature presentation, but I am not sure he's with us yet.
I do have a question. Will I get access to this recording? Because you need to like write a little paper. Okay.
Yes,
thanks.
absolutely. So the following week after our meeting, we always send out a follow-up newsletter, and it'll have a link to the recording and kind of a summary of all the things that we've discussed. And then if anybody has shared any information in the chat, like links and documents, we'll go ahead and include all that in the newsletter as well. So it's kind of a nice place to capture everything we've talked about today.
And then I'm not signed up, like my field instructor, she forwarded the invite to us, so how
Okay.
can I sign up?
Okay, we'll add you to the list. If
Okay.
you want to share your email, you can send it to me in the chat directly if you want, or you can just email digitalinclusion@kclibrary.org.
Okay, thank you.
Either way, you bet. One of my cats is being very talkative right now. Sorry.
So Wendy, Aaron is in contact with BJ, so we'll see if we
Kind
can.
of sit tight and
Yeah. Just stare at each other awkwardly.
Oh, well, I'll fill the air. I'm going to put a link here, Nicole, to the coalition's YouTube channel where you can view the past meetings, and the link that Wendy will share is a link to that YouTube channel for the specific video that'll come out today. But you can see everything we've done in the past there at that.
Okay,
YouTube
perfect.
channel.
Thank you.
Remember to like, share, and comment.
Okay.
Subscribe.
Will do.
There's also an event after this that might be interesting to people. It is what's it called? Imagining a Digitally Equitable Future, Lessons from Nashville's Past and Present. So I put that in the chat as well. It's today at noon, so starting shortly. And so there's that. Aaron, any news from BJ?
I know we had a scheduling that we needed to accommodate, and we've kind of breezed through our agenda, so.
So no news from BJ yet, but you know how meetings run over a little bit, and then a transition period is sometimes you need a little bio break, that sort of thing. So sure he's coming soon.
Who's our furthest traveled visitor? I see we have Art Ware on the line. I don't know if he's at the screen, but there he is. Hello. Are you muted?
I was, and initially I couldn't unmute myself, but now I can. Hi,
Yeah.
everybody. Art, and here in a little dreary, but not as cold as it's been here in Albany, New York, and there are a number of people on this link that I really admire. Tom and Rick, certainly Stephanie. You've got some really wonderful, caring people there.
Hey, Art.
Things are
Art, it's Tom. It's great to see you as always. I just read this morning that there is a there were about 15 organizations that just got announced as recipients of the New York Digital Inclusion Fund. And I wasn't sure if maybe you got in on some of that action, or if you're familiar with that announcement that just went out this morning. It's good to see that there is more and more interest and resources being applied to the activities that, in your backyard. I don't know if it's made it to the Capitol or not, but certainly we're seeing it in places around New York State.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it yet, Tom, but we've got, we actually have a regional digital inclusion organization out west that is very connected to the NDIA. And so they are kind of leading the charge in terms of awareness here in the state. And, we've come a long way as all of us, and the things that we care about and the importance of digital inclusion, no matter what you can think about, unless you're sitting in your chair in a straitjacket, somehow communications or digital affects it, whether it's driving or healthcare or even shopping or using your credit card, it affects everything. So, and then not to mention all the things that, were exposed with the pandemic and students having to struggle to make, connections to stay connected with their schools and all that. I mean, we realize how important it is,
Oh, absolutely.
sure connections are there and that the connections are reliable and dependable,
And Art, just for the sake of some of the folks on this call who may not have met you or understood where you're coming from, why don't you just remind everybody about your work and your organization and how you're involved, and kind of how you've come to join us on a fairly regular basis here in Kansas City, even though you're up in the great state of New York.
Well, I just admire the work that you guys are doing down there. You guys are not taking any prisoners for granted. I mean, you're doing real work there. And we could only dream of some of the things that you're doing down there. I have spent probably the last 30 years in New York. I have served this organization. I work for an organization. It's kind of it's known as one of the state's infrastructure organizations, the Dormitory Authority, which is a whole lot more than dormitories. I work with nonprofits to help them secure and finance, as efficiently and as effectively as possible their technology. Hospitals are a large part of what we do. We work with higher education organizations and other charitable, based organizations that are either funded by the state or volunteer organizations. And so we have done, I remember here about 10 years ago when the electronic health records came into being. The hospitals were looking at pretty eye-popping numbers to network themselves. So we actually got legislation, was able to help them, fund a lot of those electronic health records, EMR projects and so forth. Was kind of one of our last things. We've done a lot of projects with our energy office during the time when energy efficiency was kind of a thing that was coming on and people were aware of it. We have an energy office. It's called NYSERDA. And NYSERDA actually has by any other name, it's a tax, but it's called a system benefit charge. And if you get your electricity from a utility, you pay this system benefit charge. I pay it at home. It's about 75 cents on my bill, but it equates to like $175 million that most of it goes to NYSERDA to provide programs and services and offer incentives and so forth. And so we work with a lot of our hospitals, a lot of our colleges and universities to get money that they're already paying. If you pay into the fund, then you qualify for the incentives when you have a qualifying project. So we've done a lot of those kind of projects. My probably longest serving effort has been with our, we have a, it's called the state, it's the state, the State Information Network. Most states now have an electronic medical records, organization. So I've been involved with our electronic medical records program in New York, and a lot of our, almost all of our hospitals, nursing homes, labs, physician practices, they all are part of this network that we built basically from the ground up over the last, I've been involved with them 15 years. And my organization has me represented. I represent them there. And so most states now have that type of organization. And so I've been involved there. The way I got into broadband was someone actually brought me a broadband project. I had no idea what the world they were talking about, and asked me to look at it to see if it was something that we could fund, for a local municipality. And so I did, and that got me involved with going to the conferences. And then I learned about digital inclusion, and that's how I ended up finding, Angela, and then I found out about what was going on in Kansas City, and I think I met Tom and I've talked to Rick over time. So that's how I kind of got plugged in here. And that's enough about me.
Well, I
Really,
really
come on to
appreciate it.
learn about what you guys are doing.
Well, I understand it, but at the same time, you've been a great ambassador for, the impact and influence that, this group of people has in just showing how important it is to get together. It's just once a month. We're all voluntarily doing this. We share best practices. We get to know each other a little bit better. And I think as a result, it's one of the main reasons why the NDIA will say they've had so much impact in their advocacy efforts, and making the federal government aware of what's going on because of efforts like this, where we get together and we share and we spread the word. So to me, giving you the floor for a few minutes is, that's what we're about. That's how we've managed to get to know each other and to learn more about the things that we've got to do to continue to support each other. Sometimes it's just by acknowledging who we are and what we're doing. Like Nicole, I'm so glad you're here for the first time, and you can kind of see this. It's just a natural evolving kind of ecosystem that we've put together. Some of us have been here for years, others are just joining more recently, but we all find our way to take from this and then go back and do even bigger and better things within our own organizations as a result. So thanks, Art, for sharing. And like I said, you're a regular participant, which we really appreciate. Wendy, I'll hand over to you because I know there's some other things that we were trying to get accomplished. I don't know if BJ has joined us or not, but I'll just hand back over to you. And again, just thanking Art and all of you from the standpoint of why we get together each month.
Thank you so much for taking the helm and sparking that conversation. It was really good to get to know Art.
My
Les,
pleasure.
heard anything from Aaron? Okay.
I don't think we've heard anything quite yet.
Sure.
Okay, well, I got a question for Art.
Yeah.
So Art, you mentioned a regional planning organization in New York. Are they working on a broadband expansion, digital equity plan? Because we're seeing that this federal funding is going to come through states. States have to have a statewide plan, and then regionally, we're looking at that here in Kansas City. So we are, of course, trying to learn, best practices around the country.
I don't know that they have a plan that's not already the one that was adopted from the NDIA, or if they're modifying it and tailoring it to the state. I'm just not that close to what they're doing. But you know, I'm aware of that, and I remember having a conversation when I was at one of the conferences for everybody should know the Next Century Cities conference. I was there and I was talking to the people that were there from Google, and you know, during the time, and this was probably 6-7 years ago, nobody knew what a digital inclusion plan was, or what, you know, it meant to have one. And everybody was trying to figure out what the secret was to get Google Fiber to come to their town. And so I was having this conversation with them, and they said, you know, I forgot who the person was. I think it might have been the guy from Austin that, you know, runs the Google Fiber program in Austin. And he said, you know, one of the things that we look at is if there is some kind of, consistent plan to make sure everybody is digitally included. And you know, that was the thing that really sparked my interest. Well, you know, if Google is looking at that, well, where, and so I ended up making my way, you know, to Next Century Cities, and that's what kind of got me, you know, more in depth in terms of what was happening with digital inclusion. But it's now, you know, a little bit, the elevation of the idea is not as foreign as it was then. The other thing that I have been involved in that I would want to challenge some of you here, you know, in some of your towns and cities and villages, there's an organization called Intelligent Community Forum. And the concept behind the Intelligent Community Forum is to kind of do what you guys are doing, to bring everybody together. But what they do, what the ICF does, is they hold free conferences, and before the first conference, they actually entertain information that they gather, and they'll evaluate that information. They used to get a handful, now they get, you know, several hundred. But what they do is they pick out the top 20 of those, and they call that the top 21. They call it their Smart 21. And over time, that cluster, the 21, gets vetted, and one of them will be selected as the most intelligent community of the year. And it's a very prestigious thing, doesn't cost anything, but the idea is basically, as you see how technology has evolved from, you know, the dial phones to now we have smartphones. That's an elevation in basically, from basically dumb phones to, smartphones. And now we have another whole level that is considered, intelligent. That's taking the smart technology and the sensor technology, all these things that you can now integrate in a city or a town or a community or within an organization or within a library or within a school system, taking advantage of the technology to make your organization more nimble, smarter, and basically integrating it to become intelligent. And that's kind of what the Intelligent Community Forum is about, figuring out what you've done and how you're integrating the technology to become more intelligent. And so I would challenge you to look into that organization, get together, a group of people, from your university or from your library or from your community or from your mayor's office, and apply, because what happens is when you're involved in that, it kind of is a you're in a environment where you're learning what people are doing and you're figuring, because nobody has all the good ideas. They're everywhere. And this becomes kind of an international, gathering because, there is no, well, it's only for the United States. It's everywhere. When I go to those conferences, sometimes they're in, United States. I've gone to Taiwan. I've gone to London and other places. And to see what people are up to and how they're moving their, communities forward with regard to public transportation, healthcare, and various other, and using this quote unquote, the smart stuff to become intelligent. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And it's something, it's like anything else. The more you know, the more you can do to provide better services and do it more effectively and, stretch the dollar, further and those kinds of things. So I would challenge you to look, if you put in Intelligent Community Forum, you will find them, the ICF, you will find them. And, fill out their questionnaire, doesn't cost anything, submit it, you never know. And then you're on that track of learning what everybody else is doing. And you're also, looking at your infrastructure and filling out information that, that they can use, but also help, you can never do anything to help someone else, without helping yourself first. So I would say, take a look at that and see if you can, muster up the resources to participate in.
By the way, Art, I put your organization's website in the chat so they can
Okay.
learn more about the Dormitory Association, the work up in New York.
And my email is beware@dasney.org. So if you want to email me, feel free. I have
Great.
the
Thanks.
that I can send and share.
Thanks again. Hey, just an idea. I know we talked earlier about the ACP and an activity going on in Kansas City tomorrow at the Mohart Center. I'm just curious to know, another big funding program that took place in the last year actually affected the library, but it's had a big impact on households throughout the city. And that's something called the Emergency Connectivity Fund, ECF. And it went primarily to libraries. I don't know if I saw if April Roy on the call. April's on the call. Hey, April, I seem to have a track record of putting people on the spot. I didn't know if you might be in a position to just share with us a little bit about how the Kansas City Public Library has benefited from some new federal funding and what the implications of that are for the broader community, particularly in light of what we talked about with tech access and outreach. And I'm not sure people are aware of how much more capable the library branches are now of providing devices and mentoring and things like that. Would you mind just giving us a brief update on that?
Sure, Tom. I'm happy to give you all an update. It's so good to be here with you all this morning to represent the library, to learn more about the great programs that you all are doing out in the community. It's really wonderful. So the library did receive a sizable grant through the ECF funding, which we paired with an ARPA grant for a total of about $1.3 million. We funded 2 full-time staff positions to roll out more tech device lending and more support, working closely with Wendy, of course, because she's out there doing that so well already. The library has put in place a system to roll out 300 new hotspots to replace some of our old ones that we've had circulating that have gone missing or their connectivity has expired. And then we plan to roll out 1,200 Chromebooks that will be available for library patrons to check out and also available to our amazing partners and organizations. So if you guys have a great idea of a program you would like to run, you need some computers to do it, we are very flexible with how we're going to use these 1,200 Chromebooks. So we're open to ideas. Please be in touch with either myself or with Wendy if you have an idea or a project that you think these Chromebooks could help with. We're still sort of working on packaging and some internal library processes and procedures and things for the Chromebooks, but the hotspots are ready to go. Tom, I think you're on mute.
I am. I muted myself. Thank you for sharing that, April. If anybody has questions, please speak up now. Like I said, I don't know to what extent, and are you aware, are there any plans? And I think Carrie's on the call. I don't know, are there plans to, like, have you been publicizing the availability of those devices? Is that something that we may be able to help on as a coalition to, raise awareness of that? Or is the demand sufficient just based on walk-in traffic at the branches?
We felt that for the hotspot program, the 300 hotspots that we're getting most of them will go to fill pre-existing holds that we had on our other type of hotspot. So we didn't see the need to really do a big marketing push for the hotspots. Now, when we start rolling out those Chromebook computers, Carrie and her team in public affairs at the library are fully prepared for a big marketing push. And we did actually get some donor money to help with our marketing, to try to reach some of the areas that we don't normally reach with our marketing, and try to really reach outside the library walls, not just relying on library social media and the library website and things with our pre-existing library patrons. So we definitely have some big marketing plans ready to go once we have the Chromebooks ready to put out there in the community.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Carrie's got a great team, so we're in good hands.
So I had a question. There's a third ECF window opening up later this month, and I was wondering if you all plan to apply for that.
So the library has been looking into that. I'm not sure what progress has been made by our development department, but our goal with getting another round of ECF money would be to sustain the connectivity and pay for the connectivity in the future. The ECF grant that we received pays for 1 year of connectivity, and then the library is expected to sustain the program at some level for 2 more years. So we are going to need some funds to continue that connectivity and paying for that. We're also hoping that we can continue to have our 2 staff members that have been dedicated to the project to help us manage.
Hi, this is Nicole, and I have 2 questions. What does ECF stand for? And then you talked about the rolling out 300 new hotspots. Are those for patrons to come in and they can check them out? Or are they specific locations that they're already located there?
Those are both great questions, Nicole. ECF is Emergency Connectivity Fund. That's something that happened during the pandemic. The government was trying to put some money out there so people could get connected to the internet. And your other question about the hotspots, which will also apply to the Chromebooks, is that yes, we'll be sending them out to all of our library locations and therefore our patrons to check out. With the Chromebooks, we'll have a little more flexibility because we have so many more that we will be able to designate those for partners or projects. With the hotspots, they have so much demand. We expect those just to circulate with our patrons.
So thank you so much, April, for handling being put on the spot so well.
Anytime, my pleasure. This is a great group. I was involved with this group when it was starting years ago. So it's really like coming home for me to be here with you all.
Hey. Well,
hey, so this is Aaron. Sorry, I did finally, I was just texting back and forth. BJ, it sounds like, got caught up in another department of economic development, WebEx, and he was very apologetic. and so it looks like we'll have to defer his presentation to a future session. But thought might give a couple updates, and I'll put Leslie on the spot in a minute. But I did this a little bit earlier, so it's not completely on the spot. But she has, I think, sat through his presentation probably 4 times, and so I think can maybe refer to kind of some of the broad buckets of funding and what the timeline looks like. But I will also share that I made a trip to Jeff City last week to testify. There was several bills going before committee. It's it is taking me a while to really absorb actually how stuff gets done. I mean, this was a bill that Representative Michael Johnson submitted, and it wasn't entirely clear to me from the text of the bill. I think he highlighted just the importance of digital literacy and wanting to, having talked with him about what he's trying to accomplish, he really wants to get the money moving faster. He sees, a lot of the stuff kind of going on behind the scenes, but I think he's frustrated a little bit about kind of the pace and impact. He really wants to make sure that at a state level, they don't try to reinvent the wheel where things that have been successful have already been done and are in place. And he's also really wants to make sure that the urban areas of the state don't get ignored, while at the same time understanding that there's a lot of places where infrastructure is needed in rural parts of the state. I think both state offices are facing that. So, he's really trying to advocate for Kansas City. And I don't know. I think Representative Riggs, who some of you have met, and who has made a couple trips to Kansas City, he's the chair of the state committee on broadband and infrastructure in the Missouri State House. He is working on an Omnibus Bill, and so I think there's he had 3 or 4 different pieces of legislation that he had proposed in committee. It's just this kind of weird things get proposed, and there are things that people propose even though they know they're not going to pass, and there's sort of the Republican and Democrat politics and some urban and rural politics, so the 2 things that I think are kind of happening. One is the appropriation. So they're still working on getting the Governor Parsons proposed $400 million allocation. And I think Leslie, I hope, can talk to what those bucket proposals were. We probably mentioned those on past calls. So that is one thing that needs to happen. And then in addition to that, there is this Omnibus Bill, which gets into some more of the particulars, like what the speeds are, how much focus on infrastructure there is, if the state will fund, infrastructure that's only fiber, or if they're open to wireless, or what service levels, are demanded, and that. So if you want to ask Representative Johnson more about that, he's been following that and tracking that closely for Kansas City. He will be at that event tomorrow morning at the Mohart Center. With that, I will flag kind of at a high level on what we're hearing from the state.
Yeah, so from Missouri, and I've dropped the link in the chat. They have launched a webpage that is promoted as the one-stop ARPA resources. And so with that, I mean, you all are able to read. So you can see there's access, adoption, and then assistance for broadband capacity. And that's interesting because they're going to be doing their own broadband coverage map. As it relates to what we're doing, the interesting thing about the broadband affordability grant, which is $30 million, is they're doing a $100,000 set aside That's going to be, from what I understood at the last update, which is linked on this page as well, so you can watch it yourself to make sure that I just didn't misunderstand. But my understanding from BJ is that that is for them at the state broadband office to be able to do some promotion throughout the state. So it's not necessarily for people like us who would be, promoting those opportunities. So they're going to do another $10 subsidy, which for affordability, which is interesting. That will be on top of Aacp. So if somebody has leftover amount, they could take that $10 and apply it to their broadband bill. And then, you can kind of go through and on this site and see. As far as timeline goes, it sounds like, at least tentatively, that the draft guidelines for the programs will be released sometime next month in May. Then they're going to do public feedback on those guidelines in June. They're going to open the applications in July. The awards will be announced in October. And then things will kick off. The funding should start being released, I believe, in December. So we're still, yes.
Mike, can I interrupt with some breaking news?
Yes.
That is not good news. So I asked BJ if there was any brief, particularly on the digital literacy sort of programming application window timeline, etc. And his response was that the brief is that digital literacy was killed in committee with a grimacing emoji. It still has to go to the House floor, and his office is working to get that back in. I don't know any more than that or what any of that means, but to the uncertainty about how the sausage is made, and even the caution of they're going to do or they're planning to do kind of language, that sort of sounds like where we are. So
yeah, and
there's some work to be done.
And for clarity, what BJ has been presenting is what the governor had proposed. So all that still needs to be approved by the legislature, obviously. So I guess ignore all I just said. So now we know why BJ has thrown us aside. He's advocating on our behalf as we meet. So fingers crossed that we can get that back in. Okay, well, I'm going to shut up then because it's all a moot point.
Can I ask the question, is there a place that we should all, while we're here together in this group, contact our representatives? And is that helpful if 20 people send an email to someone quickly while we're here gathered around this topic wanting to move forward?
Yes, that would be. I mean, I don't think it's quick. Like, I don't think it's something that needs to happen. I mean, if you mean now, just because we're here and we're thinking about it, sure. I don't. I think there will be time. Weeks, months. I don't know what the timeline is on passage of that bill, but my sense is that it's, in weeks or months. But yes, I mean, that has been kind of his consistent message, is advocacy from constituents. The more that your reps here. Now, the part of the struggle with that, and I don't know for sure who, there may be somebody else on the call who's more plugged in from a policy standpoint. Like, I don't think the Kansas City reps are the ones who need to be convinced. So, this may be something, that would be worth asking Representative Johnson about tomorrow, and I'll bring that up when I'm there, certainly. But if others want to talk, I think the local contingent is aware of the need, but how they are able to convince the rest of their colleagues in the House is not quite clear to me. And I don't know how responsive they would be to Kansas City constituents or not.
Yeah, typically that kind of advocacy is on a constituent basis, but I think there are ways to rally those who maybe have a broader footprint. So, maybe I'll reach out to Allison Copeland with the Broadband Initiative and see if, they want to dive in on this, or at least make them aware. And sorry, go ahead, Rick.
Well, I just say it's a great question, Rachel, and everyone who's been here has seen policy statements that we've been trying to draft for really probably over a year. There needs to be a digital inclusion public policy from the Kansas City, Missouri region, and then that has to be transmitted to our state representatives. At a few sessions I've attended, there was a webinar I shared with everyone a few weeks ago by an organization called Black Churches for Digital Inclusion. And it was made very clear there that we've got to be vigilant, especially in red states, as Missouri is, to ensure that the governors and state governments allocate these funds to urban areas. And that has been a challenge with broadband funding already, that the terms unserved and underserved related to broadband expansion are not the way we normally would use them to mean unserved and underserved neighborhoods that are economically distressed. It all relates to the broadband speed delivered. And in Kansas City, we've got high-speed internet running through about everybody's backyard. So it's really a last 50-foot problem of getting that subscription paid for to the house. And that is not something really state governments have funded in the past, but will certainly be, obviously the Affordable Connectivity Program funds that, but there are tens of millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions of dollars probably coming to the Kansas City region, but we're not going to get those unless we put together a plan that shows how we're going to spend them.
Yeah, and I think too, thinking about our representatives from the urban area, and we can't make promises about extending service areas as nonprofits, but as a nonprofit, I think about the ways that we are concentrated to services here within more of an urban core, whereas there are, for aging services, a lot of gaps in like the urban rural areas that they're not quite in the city, but they're not quite extremely rural. But I think about like Blue Springs, Lee Summit, even Independence, like these areas that we can't reach, and we can't all of a sudden extend our boots on the ground capacity. But during COVID, what we've seen is that we've been able to provide care management or some connectivity to folks who at least were able to do things online, have telehealth sessions, that we can reach services there. So I wonder too, if we can just extend that vision and articulate that in a plan as to why there needs to be investment here. Happy to do that and happy to bring that back to our agency, but also that's why we're here at this table too. It's really helpful on some levels for you all to spoon feed us some of that information, and then we'll be able to make that into our own lens and do our own advocacy with it. But being here and part of this group helps activate that for us. We don't have capacity to keep the biggest pulse on some of those things, but we want to see them happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Rachel, that's a great point. I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was when we stood up the Internet Access Support Program to see the big need in Eastern Jackson County. But there is a lot of need, and I think that you make a great point. I mean, even South Kansas City doesn't have as much going on as they probably need to have. So and then there's parts of Kansas as well. So it's been an interesting way to kind of see the lens of need, I guess, through the Internet Access Support Programs, like, you know, who is not, Grandview, Belton, Cass County, you know, all, and the thing about some of those too, as far as affordability goes, is, you know, they're being charged over $100 for DSL or satellite, or, you know, something that's, you know, beyond the pale for, if that was all that we had access to, we'd be like, are you kidding me? You know, and so, you know, there is a lot to be said about those suburban parts and you know, borderline, where the small towns are, and the density is not, and the providers have not decided to have service. I don't want to change the subject too much, but I did want to say briefly that the Kansas ARPA process is moving along as well. And so I will look for that link and just drop it in the chat. There's not a lot to be said there, just that I think that the connectivity panel was making their recommendations at the end of March to the executive team there. And then the executive team will take those recommendations and try and figure out how, you know, that will be distributed based on the total amount of money they have, but then amongst the buckets that they have identified. So that was also interesting sausage making to watch, because they recorded those meetings, and there was some pretty frank conversation periodically that was interesting to hear. So and the connectivity panel was pretty diverse in its membership, as far as there was, you know, school superintendent, there was an agriculture guy, you know, just so it sort of ran the gamut, which was pretty useful. So I will look for that as well for anyone who's interested in the Kansas process.
Well, we have 9 minutes left or so. Does anybody else have anything you'd like to share or questions you'd like to ask while we're together today? Thank you all so much for this conversation. I think it's turned out to be a pretty great opportunity to share some really important information. Going once, twice. Like we said earlier, if you missed it, just in case, I'll let you know again that we will be capturing all of the links and information shared in the chat today. There will be a recording, and everything that we have talked about today will be shared in our follow-up newsletter that will come out next week, usually Wednesday or Thursday. We can get that out. So meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, digital inclusion at KC Library, and we'll get you connected to the people you need to be connected with. Otherwise, happy April Fools, and have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.